Hey guys, how's it going? This is Twig387, and in this video I'll be attempting a Pokémon Sword Hardcore Nuzlocke using only Dragon-type Pokémon. Before getting into the video, I just want to say that my channel has grown like crazy over the past days, and before I say anything else, I'd like to thank everyone so much for getting me there. It means a ton and makes all the work put into each video worth it. I still notice that 97% of my viewers aren't subscribed, so if you do like the video, consider subscribing. It doesn't take long and really helps small YouTubers such as myself out way more than you know. I should also say that I wiped 4 times before the attempt that you're about to see. Let's just say I'm not very fond of Kabu anymore. Anyway, the general rules for my definition of a hardcore Nuzlocke are as follows. If a Pokemon faints, it can't be used anymore and must be boxed for the entire run. Set mode must always be turned on. No in-battle items, but held items are okay. I can only catch the first Dragon-type encounter per route, and no leveling past the following gym leader's ace Pokemon. I'm also playing with the extended species clause, meaning duplicate encounters are prohibited, including those of the same evolutionary family. On screen are all viable encounters in this run. We have Flapple, Noivern, Haxorus, Flygon, Turdinator, Duraludon, one of the fossil Pokemon, Hydreigon, Kameo, and Dragapult. Since the Dragon typing includes some of the strongest Pokemon in the game, this challenge should be easy on paper, but unfortunately that's not true in practice. Dragons tend to evolve very late, so the early game could be quite difficult. I highly recommend watching the video to the end for some battles that are sure to give you a thrill. That aside, I would truly appreciate your support, so if it's not too much trouble, consider showing your support by liking, commenting, or subscribing if you enjoy my content. I'll also have a theme for what I name my Pokemon in this run, or, well, I guess 2 depending on how you look at it, so if you can guess what they are, leave your answer in the comment section below. Anyway, I name myself Twig as always, and so let's get into this. To start things off, I choose Scorbunny, who I name Boxed, so that Leon will have Mr. Ryhon on his team, giving me that slight extra challenge. I then take on Hop, but despite having 2 Pokemon, this guy is a joke right now. After 3 tackles, Hop's Wooloo goes down, and Boxed learns Ember. Hop sends out Grookey, so I hit him with an Ember. Hop is then just blown away that I managed to understand the most basic type matchups. After another Ember though, Grookey goes down, so I win. I meet up with my mom as I'm about to embark on my journey. She says nothing, just stares with an empty, soulless stare. I better head out before she changes her mind and decides to sacrifice her firstborn. I head to Motostoke City, where I start off the gym challenge. Just look at this beautiful jersey. One day I'll make that into merch. Hop just doesn't know when to quit, so he challenges me once again. To no surprise, things haven't changed. I then realize I can get my hands on the first encounter, so I head back to the rolling hills. Possible encounters include Axew, Trapinch, Jangmo-o, and Noibat. Unfortunately, I encounter a Noibat. I would have preferred an Axew since he gets access to Swords Dance and Dragon Dance. Taking on the first couple of gyms with a single Noibat is not exactly ideal, so I consider just resetting, but I decide to at least give it a go. Anyway, I catch the Noibat and name him Aries. He has a neutral nature, so at least that's not too bad. After doing some sightseeing in Turffield, I take on the Grass-type gym leader Milo. Milo leads with Gossifleur, which Aries takes out using Gust without too much issue. Next up is Eldegoss, whom Milo immediately Dynamaxes. I think about not Dynamaxing to add some extra challenge, but since Aries is weaker than a paper bag right now, I realize I have to. Aries is able to tank a few max overgrowths since he's quad resistant but gets dangerously close to death, as one more max overgrowth would be enough to finish him off. To my luck, Eldegoss runs out of Dynamax turns, and so Aries is able to win me the fight with only 5 HP left. What a champ. That's the first gym badge. Next, I head to Route 5, where I can catch an Applin. I name her Demeter. Applin may seem like the perfect encounter for the next gym due to his grass typing, but unfortunately he can't evolve until later on, and until then he only learns Astonish and Withdraw through level up. I'll have to just try to keep him alive until I reach Hammerlock. Next up, I'm once again challenged by Hop. Honestly, I don't know why Game Freak added so many rival fights in this game. I mean, I feel bad for crushing this guy's spirit over and over again, but I do what must be done. Aries does a good job at taking out most of his team. Next up is Nessa. I honestly don't know how to go about this gym. I got so desperate trying to come up with a strategy that I decided to resort to double team. There was no other way to beat Nessa with only a Noibat, and I guess an Applin, but he doesn't count. Aries starts setting up with double team, but to my horror, Nessa's Goldeen is actually able to hit Aries quite a few times. After setting up a good amount of double teams, Aries starts using Absorb to slowly recover some health. Eventually, Goldeen goes down, and out comes Arrokuda. Thankfully, Arrokuda doesn't connect even once, and so Aries takes her out too. Lastly, Dreadnought comes out. Now the problem here is that Dynamax moves never miss, so I have to stall out Dreadnought's Dynamax, so Ares goes for Max Guard. For some stupid reason, I try to get off one more Max Guard, but it fails. Luckily though, Ares is able to take Dreadnought's Max Darkness, which would have been lethal had it crit. On the next turn though, Ares does manage to set up a Max Guard, and so I have successfully stalled out the Dreadnought's Dynamax. Now I just have to hope that my double teams paid off. And they do. Dreadnought doesn't connect once, and so Ares is able to take out the Dreadnought with a couple quad effective absorbs, earning me a very lucky win. That was honestly nerve-wracking. Next I head to the Galar Mines, where I have to battle Bede. Bede still isn't too tough, but he could be a serious issue for me later since he uses mostly fairy types, which isn't very ideal for my dragon types. Also, I'm able to catch a Trapinch in the Dusty Bowl. I name her Mars. Next up is the battle I've wiped to so many times before, Kabu and his fire types. The problem I always faced is that his Ninetales and Arcanine both have Will-O-Wisp, which apparently has a 100% accuracy, as I've never seen it miss. I picked this challenge because I wanted an easier challenge for a break, but no! Anyway, I equip Mars with a Lumberry to avoid getting burned, but Ninetale doesn't actually go for Will-O-Wisp. Okay. Mars is then able to finish off the Ninetales with an Earthquake. Next up, Arcanine comes out. He doesn't go for Will-O-Wisp either. It could be that the AI picked up on the Lumberry, but this is definitely a first. Either way, Mars also takes out the Arcanine with an Earthquake. Now Kabu's ace comes out, Centiskorch. Before the fight even started, I realized that I'm going to have to make sacrifices. So Mars goes for Endure, but Centiskorch goes for G-Max Centiferno, which deals residual damage, so we lose Mars. Would have loved for you to stay on the team Mars, rest easy. To further stall out Centiskorch's Gigantamax turns, I also decide to sacrifice Demeter. I hate to do this, but this is the only way to guarantee me the win. Demeter falls to 1 Max Flutterby. Rest in peace, you beautiful Appleworm Dragon. Finally, I bring out Ares and Dynamax him. Ares uses Max Airstream, which does an alright amount of damage. Ares is able to tank all attacks that Centiskorch throws at him, and finally takes out the supersized Centipede. This battle was tough. I lost a lot of friends, all because of that Kabu and his foul plays. Come and cancel Kabu if you've made it this far in the video. Do it for Mars and Demeter. Next, I head out to the wild area again. There I'm finally able to catch an Axew in the Hammerlock Hills. This will be an absolute game changer. I name her Neptune. Axew has a careful nature, which isn't bad since special attack is pretty useless anyways. I then farm for Watts, which takes ages, but after getting enough, I head to the Digging Duo to try to get myself a Drake fossil. I eventually do get one luckily, so I head to Route 6 where I'm able to combine the Drake fossil and the Bird fossil to create an absolute abomination. He is kinda cute though, look at that smile. I name Dracozold Hades. Hades has a gentle nature which could be better, but whatever. What is a problem though is that he has the hustle ability, which is so bad for Nuzlocke. And then, for the millionth time, I'm challenged by Hop, who is undergoing an identity crisis, which is understood through the fact that he has a completely new team now. Thanks to Neptune though, I'm able to set up and take out half his team in no time. Outrage then confuses Neptune, and because I'm an idiot, I decide to stay in despite the massive attack boost. I manage to land one hit which takes out the Thwackey, but then Toxel comes out. Neptune hits herself, almost taking her out. That would have been a run ender right there. Do not play like that if you ever do a Nuzlocke. Thankfully, the Toxel doesn't go for an attacking move, so on the next turn, I switch out into Hades, who finishes off the Toxel with an Earthquake. Whilst exploring Stow side, I happen to witness some Diglets doing something slightly suspect. I mean, who knows what's going on underground. Next up, I take on B. With Neptune on my side, I'm feeling pretty confident. B sends out Hitmontop, and I lead with Neptune. I'm hoping that the Hitmontop would go for a counter, which would allow me to freely set up with Swords Dance, but that doesn't happen. It does so much damage. Knowing that Neptune should be able to take out a large chunk of B's team, I go for Outrage. This allows Neptune to sweep through Hitmontop, Pangoro, and Surfetched. Lastly, Machamp comes out. After sweeping the floor with B's team, I thought a Swords Dance boosted Max Wormwind would have done the trick, but unfortunately it didn't. My heart drops as I realize my mistake. Machamp goes for a Max Strike, and Neptune survives. I don't get punished for playing poorly. Since Neptune's speed is lowered, I stall out Machamp's Gigantamax turns with Max Guard. I've equipped Ares with a focus sash that I got in Hammerlock, so I send him out to tank one hit, but turns out Machamp didn't even deal half damage. This allows Ares to almost take out Machamp with an air slash. Not wanting to risk anything, I finally switch into Hades and finish the job with an aerial ace. I'm having a lot of close calls here. I need to step up my game. Afterwards, Neptune evolves into a beastly fracture. I then have to go deal with the pink dickhead. Thankfully, his team still isn't very strong yet. Hades one-shots beats Doozion with an Earthquake. Hattrem survives an Earthquake and connects with a Dazzling Gleam, which luckily doesn't do too much. Bede heals, but it doesn't help much, so I take out the Hattrem. After that, Hades runs through the rest of Bede's team. Since Bede tried to destroy some child's painting, Chairman Rose has him escorted back to his basement as punishment. As I arrive in Balanlia, I make sure to pick up the Eviolite, which will be a lifesaver in the next gym. So, I then go to challenge it, the Fairy-type gym. This is a slightly different battle though, since every now and then, Opal will ask the player questions, and if they get it right, the player's Pokemon receive a stat boost. I'm so happy this feature was added to the Fairy Gym, which could have been the hardest gym in the run. Opal leads with Weezing, and I lead with Neptune, who sets up with 2 Sword stances. I answer Opal's question correctly, which gives Neptune a speed boost. Neptune goes for a Poison Jab, expecting to kill, but it doesn't. Weezing hits Neptune with a Fairy Wind, which nearly takes her out. I did not expect that. Either way, I'm able to take out the Weezing on the following turn. Mawile comes out, but I prepared for this by teaching Neptune Dig. So Neptune takes out the Mawile in one shot. Togekiss comes out, but one Poison Jab is enough to take it out. Finally, Alcremie comes out, so I Dynamax Neptune. Neptune puts up a Max Guard, just in case something terribly wrong happens. Opal then asks another question, which grants Neptune an attack boost. Now I'm certain a Max Ooze will kill, so I go for it. And it does. What a surprisingly easy fight for a Fairy Gym. I head to Hammerlock together with Opal, but as I get there, we encounter Bede, and Opal just can't control herself any longer. Should I be worried? Next up, there's an explosion in Hammerlock. Finally some exciting plot. Oh, come on, Game Freak. Instead of doing something interesting, I gotta challenge Hop for the billionth time. As per usual, I set up with Neptune and take out 2 of Hop's Pokemon, after which Neptune becomes confused. I have a Lumberry equipped though, so I'm able to continue sweeping. I have a pretty close call with Rillaboom, since for some reason I didn't realize he was faster than Neptune, but luckily he too goes down. I decide to play it safe as Heatmore comes out, so I switch into Hades, who's able to finish off Hop. Next up is the Rock-type gym leader, Gordy. I would have played Shield in order to face Melanie and her Ice types for the added challenge, but I had already bought Sword, so I'll cut myself some slack this time. Gordy leads with a Barbaracle, and I with Hades. Hades uses Earthquake, which leaves the Barbaracle on red HP, and the Barbaracle is able to get off Rock Tomb that lowers Hades' speed. On the next turn though, Gordy plays poorly as he sets up with Shell Smash, so I'm able to take him out with Earthquake. Next up is Chuckle. Hades connects with an Earthquake, and Chuckle misses a Stone Edge. Chuckle and Hades trade some hits, which ends up lowering Hades' speed significantly. Hades' Hustle ability also becomes a problem as it misses an Earthquake despite having a wide lens equipped. Ultimately though, Hades takes out the Chuckle. Gordy sends out Stonjourner, so I send out Neptune so that I can start setting up. Stonjourner sets up with Stealth Rock and Wonder Room, which gives Neptune an opportunity to set up with Sword Stance. Subsequently, Neptune takes out the Stonjourner with a single dig. Now it's time for Gordy's ace, Colossal, whom he Gigantamaxes right off the bat. I Dynamax Neptune and go for Max Guard just in case I need to stall out the Colossal's Gigantamax. I then press Max Quake, and thankfully Neptune outspeeds, taking out the Colossal in one hit. After beating the gym, I run into Hop, who wants to battle for the trillionth time. As always, I set up with a bunch of Sword Stances, and then I start by taking out the Dubwool with a Poison Jab. Hop's Snorlax suffers the same fate, and then Corviknight comes out. Neptune uses Outrage, which leaves the Corviknight on a sliver. Thankfully the Corviknight goes down to hail damage though. Next up is Rillaboom, who almost takes down Neptune with a knockoff, but thankfully he doesn't, and so he too goes down to an Outrage. Lastly, Hop sends out his Pincurchin, so I switch out Neptune for Hades, who is able to take out the Pincurchin with a single Earthquake. I travel to Spikemuth next, where I take on Marnie. Marnie leads with a Liepard, and I start by setting up with Sword Stance. This strat is getting pretty old by now, isn't it? So I'll just cut to the chase and tell you what happened. Neptune swept her entire team. That's what happened. Next up, I head to Spikemuth to challenge Pierce. This battle is interesting since there's no Dynamaxing, and for god's sake no Encores. I lead with Aries to take Scrafty's Intimidate, and I was also counting on Scrafty using Fake Out, but for some reason he doesn't. Either way, I switch out into Neptune, who takes a payback. Neptune then proceeds to set up with Sword Stance. Scrafty connects with a Sand Attack though, which makes the sweep rather risky. I get greedy with Neptune and decide he should set up with a third Sword Stance, as I really want to be able to take out Obstagoon in one hit. Neptune still has enough health to survive a Throat Chop even after Scrafty lands a Brick Break, so I should be fine as long as there's no crit. Neptune takes out the Scrafty with a Dragon Claw, and out comes Malamar. Thankfully the accuracy drop still doesn't punish me, so another Dragon Claw does the job. Pierce now sends out his ace, Obstagoon, so I execute my plan. Neptune easily tanks the Throat Chop and retaliates with a triple Sword Stance boosted Dragon Claw, which somehow doesn't kill. I have to switch out into Hades, as Obstagoon goes for an Obstruct, giving me a free switch. Hades goes for Outrage, which takes out the Obstagoon, and finally Skuntank comes out. Hades is still absolutely outraged, probably because that triple Sword Stance boosted Dragon Claw didn't kill, but it's enough to kill the Skuntank. After the battle, Neptune evolves into an absolute monster, both literally and figuratively. I also make sure to head to Axew's Eye, where I encounter a Kamao that I catch and name Apollo. I've never actually used one before, but his unique typing will definitely be appreciated on my team. And what is it with these neutral natures, because Apollo also has one. He also has the ability Overcoat, which will be great for the upcoming Ryhon battle. Before that though, Aries finally evolves into a Noivern. I'm so happy to be able to use him in battle again. The next battle is one I've been stressing a lot about, Ryhon. I even asked the community Discord server for help on this one, which, by the way, if you want to join, the link is in the description below. So let me pause right here to break down the plan. The problem is that Aries won't fare well against the residual damage that Gigalith provides through Stealth Rock and his Sandstream ability. Hades also isn't ideal here since Ryhon has a lot of ground type coverage. It's also a double battle, so setting up will be hard. Ryhon's Flygon will always go for Breaking Swipe first, a move that lowers the target's attack stat. That means Neptune's and Apollo's physical moves won't do much. This is bad due to the residual damage that the Sandstorm will be dealing, in addition to the damage that Ryhon's Pokemon deal. Yeah, it's looking like I have to make some sacrifices here. My plan is to buy the TM for Protect and teach it to Apollo and Hades. I also give Apollo the Leftovers item. Paired together with his ability Overcoat, this will make Apollo last very long.
That's what she said!
I also equip Aries with Heavy Duty Boots to neutralize Stealth Rock damage, which will come in useful later as you'll see. I also reteach the move Clanging Scales to Apollo, a pretty hard-hitting move that hits both opposing Pokemon. It's a special attack, so Flygon's Breaking Swipe won't be a problem. It does lower speed upon use, however, so I need someone I can pivot into before Ryhon's Duraludon comes out, to remove all the stat drops. The plan may not make sense right now because I suck at explaining stuff, but let's set it into motion. So I lead with Apollo and Neptune, as Ryhon sends out Flygon and Gigalith, who set up a Sandstorm. To my horror, Flygon gets up a crit on Neptune right off the bat. That could be a serious problem. I want the Flygon gone as soon as possible, so Neptune goes for a Dragon Claw, whilst Apollo opts for Clanging Scales to finish off the Flygon, but also to deal some damage onto Gigalith. Unfortunately though, the Sandstorm gives him a special defense boost, so it doesn't do too much. Ryhon sends out Sandaconda next. Apollo goes for a Protect, since Neptune uses Earthquake to slowly wear down both opposing Pokemon. Sandaconda fails to paralyze Apollo with Glare, and Gigalith's Body Press does minimal damage on Neptune. So far so good. Realizing that Ryhon's Pokemon can't deal much damage right now, I decide that this is the time to pivot into Aries and Hades to get rid of the stat drops. This is absolutely necessary to deal with Ryhon's Duraludon. On the next turn, Hades uses Protect and I send back Apollo in place of Aries. Both opponents actually target Hades, so the switch ends up being free. I decide to finally finish off Gigalith with Apollo since I'm now set to face Duraludon. Ryhon then Gigantamaxes his Duraludon, and I Dynamax Apollo. Apollo uses Max Guard, though in hindsight I should probably have used Max Knuckle instead. Hades also goes for Protect. Duraludon uses G-Max Depletion on Hades, but luckily it doesn't do too much. Sandaconda also tries to attack Hades, but fails. On the next turn, there's no other option for Hades other than to try to use Protect again, but it fails. This could mean that Hades is done for. To my utter relief, Sandaconda goes for Protect and Duraludon targets Apollo instead. Apollo then hits back with a Max Knuckle, which also raises my team's attack stat. On the next turn, Hades uses Protect once again whilst Apollo does the dirty work. Duraludon targets Hades with a G-Max depletion, but Hades lives with 2 HP. With the attack boost from the previous Max Knuckle, Apollo is able to finish off the Skyscraper with legs. After that, I double check to see if Hades actually does outspeed Sandaconda, and turns out he does. So Hades concludes the battle with an Outrage. What a battle! I can't believe I was able to pull that off deathlessly. That's a well-deserved final gym badge. Next up, I'm told to take the train to London. Sorry, I mean Winden. I immediately head to the stadium where I face Marnie once again. Marnie sends out her Liepard and starts setting up with Nasty Plot as Neptune sets up with Sword Stance. This could turn out to be quite the Mexican standoff. But Neptune's the best duelist in the West, so after another Sword Stance, she's able to take down Liepard. From here, it's smooth sailing. Next up is Scrafty. I expect another Dragon Claw to kill, but it only leaves Scrafty on a sliver. Scrafty isn't able to hit back hard though, so after Marnie heals up her Scrafty, Neptune finishes her off. The rest of the battle goes smoothly though, since Neptune is able to take out Marnie's Toxicroak. Morpeko is also quickly dealt with. According to my calculations, even Gigantamax Grimmsnarl should go down without Neptune even having to Dynamax. And that's the case. That's Marnie dealt with. Next up is the quadrillionth and final Hop battle. Hop's choice to lead with Dubwool is pretty unfortunate though, since he can't do much against Neptune. This allows Neptune to set up several times, and eventually, a Dragon Claw takes out Hop's trusty Dubwool. Hop sends out Snorlax, but a Dragon Claw takes him out as well. Next up is a problem, Corviknight. Due to its great typing, Neptune doesn't have any moves to hit him with. I try Dragon Claw, which does a lot but not enough. Hop actually goes for a pretty good play here, as Corviknight lowers Neptune's speed with a Scary Face, which makes sweeping a little more risky. Hop even hits Neptune with a crit on the next turn, but it's not enough, and Neptune takes out Corviknight with another Dragon Claw. Pincurchin comes out next. Not wanting to take risks, I switch into Hades. Hades takes out the Pincurchin with an Earthquake. Finally, Hop's Rillaboom comes out. I'm pretty sure Rillaboom will use Max Quake here, so I switch into Ares. Ares does big damage with a Max Airstream, and Rillaboom counters with a Max Strike, which in contrast doesn't do very much. Ares is a fast boy, so he still outspeeds even after the speed drop from Max Strike. Rillaboom's Dynamax ends, and so Ares takes him out with a final Max Airstream. Poor Hop. Afterwards, I'm supposed to have a celebratory dinner with Hop and Leon, but Leon never shows up. I go to investigate and find a deranged Oleana. If a look could kill, that'd be it. Oleana sends out Frostlass, so I lead with Hades, who's equipped with a Lumberry. This allows Hades to neglect the Will-O-Wisp and hit back hard with an Earthquake. On the next turn, Frostlass does connect with a Will-O-Wisp, but it's alright as Hades is still able to take her out. Next up is Salazzle, so I switch into Neptune, who takes a Dragon Pulse. Neptune then takes out the Salazzle with a quad-effective Earthquake that ends up being an unnecessary crit. Oleana sends out Serena, so I send out Ares. Serena can't do much against Ares, so a few Air Slashes takes her out. Next up is Milotic. Oleana's Milotic doesn't have much coverage and can't really hurt most of my team, so after dealing some damage with Ares, I switch to Apollo and start setting up with Dragon Dance. From here, it's an easy sweep. Finally, Gigantamax Garbodor comes out. I decide not to Dynamax since I'm pretty sure I don't have to. Garbodor actually survives a Dragon Claw, but doesn't do much back, so Apollo takes her out on the next turn, winning me the battle. After all that, it's finally time to take on the Galar League. I head out on the pitch and... out of nowhere, Beat appears. This one will be hard because now he actually has a full team of Fairy types. I could have caught a Duraludon before this, which would have made it a lot easier, but I'll admit I forgot to. It's fine though since I have a plan. Way back in Turf Field, I made sure to grab the Expert Belt. I equipped Neptune with it. Bede sends out Mawile, and I lead with Neptune. Mawile has Intimidate, so in order for my plan to work, I have to use Swords Dance once. That's fine though, since Haxorus is able to tank Mawile's Play Rough according to calculations. That doesn't end up mattering though, since Mawile actually misses her attack, so Neptune takes out the Mawile with an Earthquake on the next turn, and Bede sends out Gardevoir. Neptune also takes out Gardevoir without any issue, so now Galarian Rapidash comes out, but suffers the same fate as Bede's previous Pokemon. Lastly, Bede sends out Gigantamax Hatterene, so I Dynamax Neptune. Now here's the thing. A max ooze with the expert belt will deal 113% on a high roll, but 98% on a low roll. So I cross my fingers for good luck. And thankfully Neptune takes out the Hatterene. After that battle, I make sure to finally catch a Duraludon. I name her Hephaestus. Hephaestus has a hasty nature, meaning more speed for less defense. Not ideal, but not too bad either. The Galar League actually starts now, and I face Nessa first. I lead with Hephaestus to set up Reflect. Golisopod sets up with Sword Stance, but on the next turn, Hephaestus lands a Draco Meteor, so Golisopod's emergency exit ability activates, and Barraskewda takes his place. I decide to stay in with Hephaestus. Barraskewda actually manages to get a crit, which leaves Hephaestus on red HP, but after that, Hephaestus takes out the Barraskewda with a Dragon Claw. Nessa sends out Golisopod again, but I know Hephaestus outspeeds, so she takes out the Golisopod with a Dragon Claw. Nessa sends out Seeking next. Seeking has nothing to hit most of my Pokemon with, so I send out Apollo and start setting up with Dragon Dance. Seeking can't do anything to Apollo, so I set up with 5 Dragon Dances just because I can. Apollo then takes out the Seeking, so out comes Pelipper. But after busting all those Dragon moves, Pelipper easily goes down to another Dragon Claw. Finally, Dreadnought comes out. Nessa, of course, Gigantamaxes her, but even after all that, a single Brick Break does the trick, moving me up to the quarterfinals. In the next round, I face B again. I lead with Hephaestus to set up Reflect, but underestimate how strong Hawlucha's high jump kick is. I switch into Neptune and set up with Sword Stance as Hawlucha can't do much now. On the next turn, I wanted to get a little risky and set up another Sword Stance to ensure the sweep, but I accidentally pressed Poison Jab, which kills Hawlucha. B sends out Phalanx next though, so Neptune just sets up with Sword Stance here instead. Phalanx uses Rock Tomb, which lowers Neptune's speed. On the following turn, Neptune easily tanks a close combat and takes out the Phalanx with a Dragon Claw. B sends out Graplock next, but he goes down immediately to a Dragon Claw. Sirfetch'd comes out, so Neptune uses Dragon Claw once more, which takes out the Duck. Lastly, Gigantamax Machamp comes out. She sure looks threatening, but a single Max Wormwind is enough to earn me the win. Finally, we face Ryhon once again. It's a single battle though, so this battle is much easier in my opinion. Ryhon sets up Sunlight with Torkoal as I lead with Hephaestus to once again set up Reflect. Torkoal uses Yawn, but I plan to switch out soon anyway, so Hephaestus stays in. One Draco Meteor is enough to kill the Torkoal. Ryhon sends out Flygon next. I predict Flygon's Earthquake and switch to Ares with Wise Glasses equipped for extra offense. This means he's able to finish off the Flygon with a single Dragon Pulse. Out next is Turdinator. In hindsight, another Dragon Pulse would definitely have been enough to kill the Turdinator, but I decided to switch into Apollo, which I think was a pretty stupid misplay. Turdinator hits hard with Dragon Pulse, so I have no choice but to retaliate with an Outrage for the guaranteed kill. This locks me into Outrage, which could potentially be very bad. Ryhon sends out Goodra next. Being locked into Outrage isn't all that bad in this case, thankfully, since one Outrage is enough to KO Goodra. Finally, Ryhon sends out G-Max Duraludon. I'm in a pretty tough spot here, since one G-Max depletion will take out Apollo and deal a lot of damage to all other team members. I decide my best bet is to switch into Neptune, who can take a G-Max depletion if it doesn't crit. And so he does. Neptune Dynamaxes and goes for a Max Quake, which does a little over a half. In this moment, I thought I'd messed up badly. But to my surprise, Duraludon goes for a Max Knuckle here instead. The only explanation I have is that after Dynamaxing Neptune, the AI didn't see the kill with G-Max depletion anymore, and just went for a random move. This allows Neptune to finish off the Duraludon with a final Max Quake. Now on to the finals. I head out to the pitch, my nerves tingling with stress and excitement. I will now face the unbeatable champion. Or not? The match is interrupted as Chairman Rose appears on screen, so now I have to go through some more plot again. Saving the world can wait though, so before that, I head to the Lake of Outrage to catch a Dreepy that I named Thanatos. I'm super excited to get to use a Dragapult. Thanatos has an impish nature which isn't great, but it'll have to do. I immediately evolve him into Dracloak, and finally into Dragapult. After making him wait, I head back to Hammerlock to confront Rose. He gives me the classic bad guy speech, after which he challenges me to a battle. Rose uses Steel types, so Apollo is perfect for the job. Rose leads with Escavalier, and I send out Apollo and start setting up with Bulk Up. After setting up, Apollo uses Buddy Press, but it's not enough to kill. Escavalier hits pretty hard with Iron Head, but on the next turn, Apollo takes him out with another Body Press. Next up is Ferrothorn, but a Body Press is easily enough to take him out. After that, Rose sends out Klinklang. I didn't realize Klinklang outsped, so it connects with a Gear Grind. He doesn't crit and I survive. Phew. Apollo can then take out the Klinklang with ease. Finally, Rose sends out Gigantamax Copperajah. I Dynamax Apollo and go for a Max Knuckle, which finishes the job. I head to the roof next to face Eternatus. This could actually be challenging since Eternatus hits pretty hard. My only choice is to slap an Assault Vest on Hephaestus and hope Eternatus doesn't kill her. Thankfully, it doesn't, and Hephaestus connects with a Draco Meteor, which is enough to kill Eternatus. Well, at least for a moment. Eternatus then Gigantamaxes, so Hop and I call for the legendary doggos to come rescue us. Together, we take on the giant purple hand. Eternatus deals huge damage onto Hephaestus, so I'm forced to switch to Thanatos with a Focus Sash right away. After dishing out some more damage, we're able to take out Eternatus without much further issue, and I catch it. Technically, Eternatus is a Dragon type, but I think using a legendary wouldn't make this Nuzlocke hardcore, so I box him. After all that drama, it's finally time to battle a champion, this time for real. The fight is pretty straightforward, though I'll be playing a little more recklessly since it's the final battle. I don't want to lose my mates, but messing up against the champion would be even worse. Leon leads with Aegislash and goes for King's Shield, so Hephaestus gets off a free Reflect. I switch into Neptune and start setting up with Swords Dance as Aegislash deals quite a lot of damage with Shadow Ball. I do predict a King's Shield though, so I go for another Swords Dance, which ends up being the right choice. In retrospect, I should have started attacking here, but I go for a third Swords Dance instead. On the following turn, Neptune kills the Aegislash with an Earthquake. Leon's Haxorus comes out next, but since Neptune's higher level, she outspeeds and takes it out with a Dragon Claw. Next out is Mr. Rhyme, but he can't do much since yet another Dragon Claw finishes him off. Way to go, Neptune. Now, Leon sends out his Dragapult. I know it outspeeds Neptune, so I say farewell to my old friend as Dragapult kills her with a Dragon Breath. Rest easy, Neptune, I couldn't have come this far without you. I send out my own Dragapult, Thanatos, for vengeance. Thanatos takes out the opponent with Dragon Darts. Next is Inteleon, so Thanatos switches out through U-turn into Apollo, who takes a Mud Shot that lowers his speed. Apollo starts setting up with Bulk Up, after which he takes out Inteleon with Close Combat. Finally, Leon sends out his famous Charizard. Unfortunately, the best play here is to stay in, so Apollo is hit with a Max Airstream and is taken out. Apollo joined late, but he was such a useful Pokemon throughout the run. I send in Aries to set up Tailwind, which is necessary for later. This, however, means that Charizard's Max Rockfall takes out Aries. He was our first Pokemon, the Noibat that overcame all odds. His sacrifice wasn't in vain though, because next up is Hades. Thanks to Tailwind, Aries outspeeds and connects with a devastatingly strong Bolt Beak, which easily takes out Charizard. And that's it. We won the run. I definitely didn't expect a Dragon-type Nuzlocke to be this hard. I was positively surprised at how much I had to strategize and plan in a game that's widely considered to be too easy. I had a blast playing this challenge, especially in the late game, and I really hope you enjoyed the run as well. Make sure to leave a like, comment, and subscribe if you did. I'm uploading videos weekly, so make sure to subscribe so you don't miss some of the exciting content that is to come in the near future. With that said, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you soon in the next video. Goodbye.